Hello there, and welcome to this week's podcast. I hope you're keeping well, whatever you're up to. I hope you're after having a good week thus far. Bit of a funny one myself there now this week, just feeling rather creative. So, to start off the podcast today, I decided to write a little bit of a song, bit of a yarn about the coronavirus and whatnot. So, if you'll sit back and listen to it there now for a moment, and we'll get into it. 'Twas the year of 2020 when the Rona struck us hard. She targeted the elderly and the vulnerable through and through. She doesn't see race or borders, and that much I know is true. For she came to Ballyfermot, Ballybow and Ballymun. Oh, Rona, you whore, won't you fuck off to that place you were before? When Leo came out and said, not long from now, some summer night, you'll see your friends again, it brought a tear to my eye. Oh, Rona, you whore, won't you fuck off to that place you were before? 'Twas May when Donald Trump said disinfecting would be the cure, and some people even tried it. Well, fuck, how wrong was he? Was across the water Jacinda in for solidarity. Oh, Rona, you whore, won't you fuck off to that place you were before? Who knows where we'll be in a month or two? Please God, here now we won't see you, taking it week by week, and that's all we can do. Oh, Rona, you whore, won't you fuck off to that place you were before? Now, hope you enjoyed that. Hope that gave you a bit of a lift, I suppose. Yeah, we're just kind of reminiscing on the last few weeks and months, I suppose, and all that, and felt like I had to put it into a song. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. So on this week's podcast, I caught up with a couple of my housemates, Evan and Tori. Evan and Tori are Kiwi born and bred, and essentially the premise of this podcast is life as a Kiwi. So yeah, we sat down out on the deck and had a bit of a discussion about growing up in New Zealand and what's that been like, and living and working in New Zealand right now. So yeah, let's jump straight into it.
Zealand growing up. Well, I grew up here in Taranaki, where you've been living for the last. How long have you been here now?
I suppose 10 months now.
10 months. And it was pretty great, to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, Taranaki's got everything you could want. We've got the mountain, we've got the sea, we've got bush, we've got farmland, we've got everything you could want for a kid. To be outside growing up and out doing things. I was very fortunate to have horses growing up. So, we were always out exploring and going around, not just Taranaki, but sometimes further out than that as well, and getting to see some pretty cool things.
And that was done with your mum, was it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Dad's very much petrol head, classic bogan. So he didn't want to borrow the horses, but out with mum a lot doing that and that sort of thing.
How'd you find being out in like the bush and different things when you were younger? Do you think it was like amazing?
Yeah. I mean, I personally loved it. A lot of people struggle in that sort of environment, but I like being kind of off the grid and away and where it's actually quiet.
Yeah.
Which is quite funny. This during ISO and that, I've realised how much noise there is day to day when everyone's busy.
Yeah, for sure.
And just how coming out here throughout ISO, it was actually quiet. Like you couldn't hear any cars. There was
no noise pollution.
No noise
like
going on. And so that's what I really enjoy being bush, and that is that there's just birds, a few tree branches snapping, and that's about it.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's good that when you come from a place like this, that you appreciate the natural surroundings that you have here that are very unique
to New Zealand. Like there are not a lot of places on the earth that you can still find kind of untouched kind of bushland that you can explore yourself.
Especially like first generation bush and stuff like that, that's, you know, been pretty much untouched for a lot of years, but there is still a lot of that, you know, it's been cleared in the past and then it's new second generation stuff coming through, so there's that variance as well, which is cool.
Is that because like it was cleared originally by like farmers and settlers here at the start?
Yeah.
Right.
But then a lot of it, the country was too steep and too rough to actually farm.
Yeah.
And it would just kind of fall into the creeks and get big slips and stuff, because obviously the tree roots would be holding it up, and then they got rid of all the trees, and so it all fell into the river. So a lot of that they've had to replant
for obvious
and
reasons.
Put back into bush. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Ev? What was it like living over on the East Coast?
Yeah, so a bit different. I didn't have horses growing up, but grew up just, it was all sport, being active, being outside, surfing, beaches. Didn't have a TV growing up either, so it was just get outside. But then I think that's quintessential New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I think just listening to what you were saying before about how it's like, you know, unique New Zealand, I think it's just also accessible. You know, like I think a lot of places around the world have beautiful outdoor areas and stuff, but you have to get charged to go there, or, you know, it's ages away, so you have to drive there.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas it's literally on our back doorstep here. You know, you can be up the mountain in the morning, surfing in the afternoon.
There's not a lot of places on earth you could say that's like a thing that you could do. Like,
that's
you know what I mean?
lifestyle you could live.
You could go boarding, you could literally go board, like snowboarding. Like we did that like last winter. Rachel and I up in Ruapeo, then came down a few hours later. We were in the water getting sunset. Sure. Like, and it was just outrageous shit, you know.
And that's the cool thing about New Zealand. And then what I'm loving about New Plymouth as well is it's just so sick and so easy just to have a sweet day. Yeah. And people pay so much money to go on these holidays where, you know, you'll go off surfing 2 times a day, eat good food, get on the beers with your friends, and that's just a regular weekend here.
Yeah, it's true.
Which is sick.
Yeah, I do think, you know, like the whole easygoing kind of hair down kind of approach to things in New Zealand, and just Kiwis in general kind of, I suppose, emit is
sure.
second to none, really. Like, and you don't get a lot of that in a lot of places around the world.
I think that's what I sort of try and explain New Zealand as it's just easy. Yeah. No matter what you want to do, it's pretty easy to figure it out and go and do it. You know, literally anything you want to do, it's not going to be hard.
Yeah.
So
just got the neighbour doing some line trimming.
Motherfucker. Sorry about that, dumb fuckwit. That was mowing lawn next door. Tori, if you want to take over there, go for it.
So just going off what the boys were saying before our wee interlude. You know, like this time last year, we did a hike up the mountain. So we did a 6-hour hike and went up for sunrise. Came back down, went down into town and had a nice cooked breakfast down in one of the cafes. Then we went out about half an hour out of town, went for about a 4-hour horse ride.
Oh wow.
And then went back home and had a big roast for dinner. And it was just one day. How good is that?
That's a hell of a day.
I was shattered by the end of it, but well overdue for a nap by the time we got home.
But it's so good the way you can just kind of like, you can get up to like 3 or 4 activities in a bloody day, or if like, just like yourself and Evan, like this week, just fucking surfing every day, you know, and you could potentially get 2-3 surfs in a day, like,
for sure,
which is ridiculous. And then ever since lockdown came out here, we have like a few of us been working from home and all that kind of stuff, so it's just been prime opportunity to just kind of get out and about and do a few bits, and surf been bloody mean. What was surf like over on the East Coast when you were growing up?
Oh, it's not as probably not as big and wild as the West Coast.
Yeah.
You know, when a swell comes through, it sort of doesn't stick around for as long.
Yeah.
But then, like, the flip side of that is, like, it's always sunny over on the East Coast, like in Hawke's Bay and stuff. I think it has the highest amount of sunshine hours in New Zealand and all this sort of stuff. So the weather is magic, but yeah, in terms of the surf, whenever the surf came through, then it'd be packed out. But I grew up on a cool Point Break, Te Wonga.
Ooh.
And it's where it's the ultimate sort of point break, where when you start out, you start down the bottom, and then as you get older and better, then you move up the point more. And
there's a bit of a pecking order there.
Well, you just naturally
progress,
move into that sort of stuff. You know, some people just roll straight out to the point, and it's just like, yeah, fuck you guys, especially if you're not a local. But yeah, no, it was cool. But then there's other great spots. You know, you go up to Gisborne and Mahia, and especially Mahia, we went up there a lot. My dad was working up that way, and it's super secluded, and not many people go up there. It's more like a holiday destination. So summer and like New Year's and stuff, it gets busy. But yeah, no, it was mean. But I do enjoy the West Coast swells, and more push behind the wave, and being a bigger dude, I need a bit more power to get me along.
But over on the East Coast, do you reckon it'd be easier for like someone learning to surf, or just when it's not going,
probably.
It's not going?
A little bit more forgiving.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's just, and like the West Coast, you got rocks everywhere and all that sort of stuff. It's crazy. Sometimes you turn up into a spot and you're like, where the hell am I supposed to surf?
Yeah, I mean, at the coast, Rocky Leicester, like Rocky Leicester literally has a rock in the middle of where you're meant to surf. Like, I remember when we drove out there one day, we pulled up to surf it the first time, and then I looked out of the break, and I'm kind of spooked anyway going out the coast because it's very raw, and I just looked out of the surf, and there's this fucking naked rock in the middle of where the surf's breaking. People are peeling around it, literally steering around this rock. So I was like, alright, so great. I'm afraid as it is, and I have to surf around a fucking exposed rock in the middle of it. But that was a fucking experience. You mentioned earlier about like different sports and all that kind of stuff. Like what would be the main types of sports in New Zealand? Obviously rugby would be a big one, but
for sure. But then like, you know, football or soccer, that's real big, and especially with the younger kids. Cricket's
massive here actually.
Yeah, basketball. On the East Coast, canoe polo. So we grew
canoe
up
polo?
Yeah.
Shit, yeah. Did you play that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Did you play that in a pool then, or is that just...
Yeah, mainly pools. Whereas like over in Europe and stuff, they play in the lakes and that sort of thing.
True, yeah.
But we play mainly in pools. But it's a super cool sport, and it's like really only big in Hawke's Bay, Wellington, Otaki, which is like Kapiti Coast, just out of Wellington.
Okay.
Yes, it's a random sort of sport that's just big in a couple of little spots.
And netball's pretty big in New Zealand as well.
Netball for sure, yeah.
For
girls, yeah.
So is netball different than volleyball?
Yeah.
Okay, describe that to me.
So netball's it's a
kind of like basketball, but you can't bounce the ball.
Yeah.
So it's just passing.
Okay.
So
and you have to stay like put when you get the ball, or?
Yeah. You can only take 2 steps with the ball.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can like grab it, land, and then one more step, and then you have to pass it again.
Okay.
But yeah, still same idea. You've got to get the ball in the hoop down the other end, and sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I never knew that there was like I thought when you say netball, I thought it was just like volleyball that you're playing, but no, it's completely different. We have sport back in Ireland, it's like handball, throwing ball like hand passing walls with ball off a wall and stuff like that. Grandad used to play that big.
Handball, like European handball.
Yeah, like a handball alley and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Oh, at school actually, there's handball.
Yeah.
Where like you're in squares.
Yeah.
And you've got to like bounce the ball to each other and stuff.
Yeah,
that's quite a big game in school.
What's the game that you play?
Hurling.
Yeah.
Hurling's pretty raw.
Yeah.
But it's so tough to try to explain it to like anyone that's not from Ireland or you haven't seen it. So whenever anybody asks me, I literally just say, go watch a YouTube clip, because I'm trying to explain it to you and you're just going to end up thinking of like polo cross.
But it's funny.
It's kind of like hockey.
Yeah.
But you can pick the ball up and throw it and launch it. Is it like if
hockey and lacrosse had a baby?
A lot of people do, like a lot of Americans compare it to lacrosse. It does have similarities, but instead of like flinging the ball, you've like a rigid stick, and it's not like a net at the end of it. It's just the stick gets wider at the bottom, so that's a boss, and that's the part that hits it at the end. So yeah, but that's like it's the fastest field sport in the world, and yeah, I remember being at like many an All-Ireland final, and you'd have people going into the stadium, different things like Americans and all that kind of stuff, and you'd just be like, their mind's just gonna be fucking blown by this, like, because it's
just the pace of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's also a native sport, so it only happens in Ireland. Then the All Ireland is like, you know, whoever like gets to the semi-final, final, the final is the All Ireland final, and then so like it's county by county basis, so like huge rivalry and all that kind of stuff. So and then it's almost like Roman in a way, do you know?
It's
Like
kind of
you
weird
go
that
into
it
this
hasn't-
big amphitheater, which is Craic Park at home,
Yeah.
but it's obviously a stadium, but like just this. It's just a different vibe than going to like a football match or a rugby match. It's just like this raw, like I don't even know how to like tribalism in a way.
I went through a couple of years of that, of sort of self-reflecting and going, what is it about rugby and sport that I love? But I think it does take you back to the Roman times and to you know, the Colosseum, and that sort of going into a crowd and being like, yeah, you know, my team is stronger and bigger and faster than you. Just like watching Gladiators, when it was like, right, I want him to kill him, and I reckon it's sick, and it's a weird thing it's such a primitive thing and a primitive feeling, but then that's human nature as well. So,
and it's a cultural thing as well. Like if you're brought up with that, like that's your norm. Like like I remember when I was growing up, like in my teens, like feeling a ferocious kind of anger against my opponents. You know, you go into a game, you're literally going out like to hurt the fuckers, like, you know, which is probably not the best way to approach sport, but like, yeah, that's like your granddad say like, oh, he's not your cousin, pull hard, and all this kind of shit, like just cast stuff.
It's quite funny though, like how important a crowd is for that sort of thing though.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I was talking with my sister yesterday, and her flatmate was watching the UFC without the crowd.
Yeah.
And he just said it was the most horrific thing to watch, because you could hear all the crunching and like thuds and like just things sounding just, you know, like just raw fighting, and it just he was just like, it just took the fun out of it.
Yeah,
you know,
I can imagine.
it wasn't that huge, like you can't actually hear anything and can't hear the hits making contact so much because the crowd's going, and so it kind of takes that real rawness out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're watching it without it, you're just watching someone getting pommeled.
But then even just as sports in general, like it's, you know, even growing up when you do your cross country and all the runs and stuff, when you run past the crowd, all of a sudden you're running faster. And you're just like, how did that
you get
just
that
happen?
extra pump like that
sure.
you wouldn't get from a crowd. But like you say, but it changes from like a spectator. But even the fighters, like to fight in a ring, I can imagine without those people around you, like you're not going as ferociously maybe as you could have before, because like you have all this expectation built around you, but like you can't actually see the people who are judging you in a sense. You know what I mean? So I'd say it differs in that way, but I don't agree with that at all. I think they should have just postponed it. Like everything is on fucking shutdown now. Why?
Just imagine Conor McGregor going in and fighting with no crowd.
Yeah,
like that's his
it'd be
game.
the shit. Yeah,
like,
the
where he
shittest
like
thing
comes
ever.
in and it's just like shit talking and getting everyone psyched up and
there's no even entrance. Like imagine entering with like music now. Everyone would just say this is lame.
It'd be like you were just going into Spa, you know, like
it would just be
like training. For sure.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I didn't even think of that. It's going to be interesting, I think, the next few months, just in even saying like rugby games and soccer games without the spectators in the grounds that it's happening in.
Yeah,
it's going to be far out.
It will be interesting to see how they perform though.
For sure.
You know, because I feel like some people would actually potentially do better without the pressure of the crowd.
Potentially, yeah. Yeah, because like you just said, like it could be like just a training day for them. They go in and it feels like training, because usually you train in the ground where everywhere is empty and all that kind of stuff. Change the mindset.
And it'll be interesting to even watch it online and stuff, because watching the replays, it's rubbish. Like, you know, for the last 2 months, it's just been replays, and even though they were good games at the time, it's just not the same as watching live sport.
Like we went down to the Irish pub the other day, and there was replays on of that. And it's just like, it was nice to have like something to look at when you're in the pub or whatever, but it's just not the same as live sport. You can't like get that feeling like, go on, fucking.
That just reminds me of completely off topic, kind of, but we were down in a bar one night, and like it was to the point that the dance floor was starting to pick up, you know, and we were out having a boogie, me, Evan, and then our old flatmate, Darren, and I just turned to Darren at one point, and he was just like, it couldn't get any better. like there was cricket still playing on the TV, but the dance floor was going, and there was girls everywhere, and it was just like the dream. Having a boogie, the cricket's on, can't go wrong. Beer in hand. How
It's
good.
hilarious. I can imagine Darren just watching the cricket, just dancing away, kind of just floating.
He was in his element. He was loving it.
That's gas. Yeah, a topic I wanted to cover, I suppose not cover, but like just touch on as well, is like kind of, I suppose, native Māori culture and Islander culture, because like it's so alien to me coming over to New Zealand, you know, being immersed in this culture where there is no Islanders and Māori people, like people I've never seen before and cultures I've never been exposed to before, and yeah, it'd be just interesting to see kind of your kind of takes on all those kind of, and I know you're half Māori, Evan, and you obviously Kiwis put up with and interact with every sort of a culture in New Zealand.
Yeah, like I got brought up Māori. My dad's Māori and my mum's European, but yeah, I've probably always had a very interesting relationship with my Māori side, because just to touch briefly on history, my grandfather's generation was essentially like the Māori language was sort of beaten out of them, so they my grandparents were fluent, but they didn't teach their kids, because when they were at school, if they got caught speaking the language, they would get the cane, and so the government was essentially trying to stamp it out. So none of my uncles speak Māori, until they've sort of learnt themselves later, and so then I even asked my grandfather if he'd help me. I spoke to him in Māori, said, you know, can you help me and learn this language? And he said, nah, don't worry about it. It's not worth it. Wow.
That's heartbreaking, eh?
Yeah, for sure. And especially now to see the Māori language growing again, and the value that is being put on it by the government, by people, and yeah, and it's cool. Like it's identity. Yeah. But then it changes you and how you look at yourself, and so I think that's added to my sort of search for identity, and then also going overseas a lot. It's weird because you go, oh yeah, well sweet, I'm a New Zealand Māori, and when you're overseas, people sort of find that quite romantic, and it's
they have expectations nearly.
Yeah, for sure. And you've got brown skin, and you know, you can play a guitar and all these sort of
classic Māori traits.
Classic Māori traits. But then when, you know, personally, when you come down to it, then it's like, well, what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
You know, I don't have any Māori tattoos, but does that make you Māori, and all that sort of stuff? But then I love the sort of the spiritual side of it. You know, like, so there's sort of Tangaroa, who's the god of the sea, and Tāne Mahuta is the god of the forest, and there's all this other stuff that you sort of get brought up with, and
that's so beautiful as well. But even when you just touch on, like, you know, your grandfather and different things like that, it being like essentially the language and the culture being beaten out of the you know, the whatever, likes your grandfather was in school and likes yourselves aren't promoted to talk it. Same happened in Ireland. Like when the English came in, like any people speaking Irish, like that was banned. Like not a thing. If you spoke Irish, you were a fucking pagan. Like you were just less than human, you know. So there's definitely like similarities there, but it's interesting to hear, like, because the Māori culture is obviously, you know, after coming to New Zealand, about 200-300 years ago, like less than that, so it's quite a new thing. But like but it's great. Like, it does seem that the government are kind of stepping in now, and they're kind of really being proactive about bringing the culture back in, and I suppose uniting everybody, you know, because New Zealand is such a diverse culture. Like the amount of fucking, you know, Europeans, there's Americans here, there's bloody Islanders here, South Pacific, you know, all the Australasian people. Like the mix here is insane. But no, it's good to see that there is being steps taken, but it's interesting to hear, you know, your journey with it as well.
Oh, for sure.
And like, even, I don't know, like, it probably would have been the same when you were at school, like when they started up like the Māori language classes and things like that, it was still quite controversial. Right. And that's still, you know, that's in my generation, which is very recent in terms of me being at school, you know, like. And
what do you mean by controversy? Like there was kind of a good bit of backlash too, like that, like people go, like, you know, like yourself going to school.
Yeah, like
learn
a lot of people kind of thinking that it was wasted time and wasted resources learning it. You know, that we could have been learning more important things in school and things like that, but that was just that mindset of the generation before, where it had been stomped out and, you know, no one was to speak it, to then being trying to, you know, our generation was the first ones to try and bring it back in again. And it's cool now. Like, I feel like this next wave of kids coming through and that are really gonna benefit from it, because it's becoming more and more accessible and accepted within the like the different generations.
Definitely.
You know.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's exciting.
Yeah.
And it is a really cool language. And there's definitely, like, I feel like the English language can kind of, there's words that don't go, you know, like all quite surface level.
Yes, it doesn't have richer meaning. Yeah.
And I feel like you're more native, you know, like Irish and Māori and that have words that the English language can't even
you can't
define and explain.
Yeah, it's really tough to articulate some things when you're feeling something, you know. Like there's Irish words out there like that, literally one word, and it'll just be like, so that the weight of the day is upon me, like that one word is combusted into that, like, which is amazing.
And that's the same with aroha in Māori. It's like people like bring it back down to meaning love, or, you know, that sort of thing, but it's actually much deeper than just love. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, and that's beautiful. You can probably elaborate more on that sort of thing, can you?
Like you say, there's lots of different ways, and even just like the old proverbs and different things like that, you know, like it might just be a case of saying 4 words, but the meaning behind it all has so much more
depth.
For sure. And how did you find, like, you spent a good bit of time overseas, Evan, how did you find, like, travelling around I suppose different parts of the world, being a Kiwi? How did you find people, you know, when you told people you were a Kiwi, how did they react, or how did that kind of, I suppose, help or not help you? And
yeah, for sure. Look, you know, it's always a proud sort of moment, you know. I'm quite happy to say I'm a Kiwi overseas, and most places, I can't think of any actually where
it wouldn't be the
where
case.
It's not a good thing. And people always see New Zealand as, or think of New Zealand, or have heard of New Zealand as being like a magic place, and it is. I fully agree with that. But I think it's
a beautiful place.
I think that's always been something that I've loved. Like, what's forced me, not forced me to go travelling, but what's meant I travelled has so much is, like, at the end of the day, if everything fails and I run out of money and like everything just doesn't work, I come back to New Zealand and this is where I end up. It's like, that's pretty cool.
If that's bottom of the chart, like, this is fucking like, sick.
I'm going out to try and find the other cool things, because when I come home I've got amazing right here as well. So,
for sure.
I've been lucky to travel a lot of places, and through Europe and South America and Indo and all through the middle there and the South Pacific. But whenever you say you're a Kiwi, people are like, oh, cool, that's awesome, tell me about it. You know, they want to go there, or they might have met someone else who was a Kiwi and they were cool, and so just trying to provide that sort of name, the Kiwi name, with another good experience is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. That's second to none. I think there's a lot of similarities between Ireland and New Zealand on that front. Just having conversations with yourselves over the last few weeks, it definitely feels to me that, like, you know, no matter where an Irish person goes around the world, like, you're usually taken in by a person. You know, there's no like ill will for, like, when you say you're Irish, they're like, oh, Ireland, all this type of stuff. I feel the same with Kiwis. Like, if somebody says a Kiwi, it kind of pacifies you. You're kind of like, oh, these, you know, world, like, I think Irish people in New Zealanders are like people. Once you say you're either Irish or Kiwi, you know, people just be like, oh, that person's like probably a really good person. You know what I mean?
Safe and
exactly. Definitely approachable and all that. Another one I wanted to cover actually is, like, you know, like at home basically, and this kind of touching back on hurling. So hurling, literally, like, there'd be when you're bred into like a GA family, like a proper GA family, you're literally like given a stick when you're like 2. When you can walk, you're given a stick. You know what I mean? And it's just gas, like, because that's just how you grow up. You're so intertwined with that sport and all that kind of stuff. Like you go to bloody mass with a hurley and a sliotar, and you tap around with your friends after and all that kind of stuff, and you go to school with it. You do everything usually with a hurley or sliotar or a gab ball, either or. Me personally would have been hurling, but is it this, like I get the feeling that it's kind of the same over in New Zealand with like rugby. Like the amount of young people I see around just going around tossing the rugby ball, like it.
You definitely grew up with the rugby ball, but I think like you compare it to somewhere like England with all the football, you know, some of those families it's just like, you know, live or die Portsmouth, or you know, and obviously like old school hooligans and all that sort of stuff, which is just crazy. Whereas here, like, you will still be, you know, proud Hawke's Bay or proud Taranaki or proud wherever you're from, but you can still go and have a beer with the other team, and like that's the most important thing. If you started really getting into it and just being like, no, rah, 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 I hate them, rah,
No,
rah,
I don't
like,
want to hang out with you anymore.
no, exactly.
Like
you realise it's just
and that does happen back at home, like literally, like literally county by county. I remember when I went to school, like I used to be friends with a lot of the Kilkenny lads, which would be the county over, but a lot of people would be like, oh fuck them, they're from Kilkenny, like you can't be friends with them. It's just like, the fuck are you talking about? Like, they're people, they're sound out, you know what I mean? What are you even talking about?
It's funny you guys say that though, because for me, like, the sport scene was so alien. You know, like with my upbringing, you know, the only sport that was ever played in our house was motorsport, because Dad's a full-time bogan. And and other than that, we'd be out horse riding, and it's not even like we'd watch horse, you know, like equestrian, like different equine sports on the telly or anything like that, because we didn't do that either. Like, I was never a part of a pony club or anything like that, and like show jumping was just this thing over there that we had no idea about. So that whole competitive sport mentality just is alien, you know, to me personally. But for a lot of people in New Zealand, like, it is a huge part of their life. But I've just never understood it, and I'd get frustrated because everyone would be like, oh, we'll go down and watch the rugby, and I'd just be like, why? Like, I don't get it, you know, like, and it's only just in the last couple of years, you know, hanging out with Evan and hanging out with other people that watch sport, that it's actually become something that I'm actually somewhat beginning to enjoy.
You're catching on,
It's not something I'll go out of my way to do on my own, but if it's there, I'll watch it and enjoy it. But that's so new to me that it's, you know.
Yeah, see, whereas Dad, like, he was a really good sportsman growing up, and then I was a good sportsman growing up as well. But like, even when I was little, like, Dad would wake me up. You know, the All Blacks are playing in South Africa, so Dad would wake me up at like 4 in the morning and take me around to Granddad's, and would sit at Papa's place, and, you know, Papa's place always smelled like smoke. Nanny used to smoke hard out, but then that was, you know, oh, Dad's taking me to watch the All Blacks, you know, and we'd sit there at 6 in the morning, you know, and have a feed after the game, and that's your childhood memories, you know. And that's
really cool though. Like, you know,
sure.
like you can, I suppose, with a sport like with the All Blacks, obviously, you know, one of the best, the best team in the world going forward, but like you said before, like, you're just going around to these matches, like, even for yourself, like when rugby season's on, like, it's very social thing here, whereas at home it's literally it seems to be more social here rather than back home. It's just like, let's get on the fucking piss, you know what I mean, like hard out, like, you know, the game's on Sunday or whatever, just go hard, and you go into fucking Monday morning and mouldy out to work. But then, like, in saying that, it can kill your night as well, because sometimes All Blacks will be playing and then they might lose, and it's just like, we might just go home now. Like, I don't want to get on the piss anymore. Like, the boys just lost. So it can kill it like that. Sometimes, like, people will have their wedding or, you know, something like that on, and they haven't looked at the schedule, and then, you know, there's boys at the table, you know, listening to the speeches with the rugby on their phone, just because, like, it is so important and passionate and that sort of stuff. But then what I love about it as well is, like, if the All Blacks are playing in Wellington, you can get a ticket. Like, it's again, it goes back to that easy thing. You know, it's not like, oh, the All Blacks are these big guys who no one can ever get near, and unless you're a season holder, ticket holder, and have paid millions of dollars. Like, it's literally anyone. Most people know an All Black, or, you know, went to school with someone who ended up getting in the All Blacks, or. Sure, the Barretts are even from around here, aren't they? Like, down the coast.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I think I saw one of them down. Yeah, I did see one of them. I saw Bowden when we were down in Queenstown, just on the piss, like just literally walk by, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and you can quite easily go up and say hi, and like I saw an article the other day. Jacinda was going into a cafe in Wellington, but the cafe was full because of lockdown, and so she had to leave. And it was just like,
oh man, that's fucking brilliant.
I know, but then that's the Prime Minister, and she's just like, okay, no worries, like. As opposed to the security bowling in, right? Everyone has to clear
space.
Yeah, like no one's that important.
It was quite funny actually. One of the barracks, I can't remember what one it was. I was on the treadmill at the gym and I didn't have my glasses on because they kept falling off my face. But one of the barracks was in, not sure what one. I just got told afterwards. Totally missed it because I was blind at the time. But he just bowled on into the club, had a train, and then buggered off.
Not about it,
yeah. And that's the nice thing as well. Like no one bothers them either.
Yeah, that's a very important thing I find. And there's definitely that thing at home as well. Like even I remember being a young fella and I saw like some of the Irish lads were in Dundrum, big shopping centre up in Dublin. I was with my parents, whatever like that, and I could see them like there was Paul O'Connell and a couple of others like in there, and then I was just like. I was like, starstruck. I was like, oh my god, like this all this crack. But then they were like, went up and said hello, and it was real humble vibes. But you could just see that nobody was really messing. They could just go around and do their thing, and they were happy to, sign an autograph or anything like that. But much more humble than other things. Like you see like footballers over in England, and literally like your man Mo Salah can't he can't walk from home from the fucking grounds back to his house because like he's just getting swamped by people taking videos of him. It's just like. Come on, they're people too. Like.
Yeah, for sure.
But I suppose one thing that we just covered, like just there as well, was Jacinda. Like in your opinion, like how well do you think she's killed it?
Look, I mean, I don't have a huge, I don't take a massive interest in going into the real deep stuff with politics and researching and that sort of thing. But just with the shit that she's had to deal with. In her term so far, it's out of control. I mean, we had that horrific incident down south with the shooting, and she handled that with the most poise and grace that I've ever witnessed. And I mean, you look at around the world with other terrorist activities and things like that. It's always the person's plastered across all the news. Their face and their name is everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's always, we've got to get revenge on this person in a way. Yeah. Whereas Jacinda she just stamped it out. Same as she's done with COVID. She's just stamped it out. She didn't give him a name. She didn't give him a face. She made him completely irrelevant and just took care of the people that needed it. And that was beautiful. I reckon she handled that amazingly. Yeah,
for sure.
And I really appreciate as well, just with all this stuff with the COVID-19 and all that stuff happening, and all of her press releases and that. She's so direct. There's no bullshit. She doesn't fluff about with political chat. She just is straight to the point. She says what she's got to say.
Yeah.
She answers the questions that are actually relevant, and just and actively and respectfully dismisses the ones that are just stupid.
There's a lot of stupid.
There's
ones.
a lot of stupid questions, and and she just and she's just like, we don't need to talk about that. Yeah. And then it's just like, oh shit, actually no we don't. That's completely irrational. Yeah. And let's move on.
I think a great one you said last week was like she was in a press briefing and then one of the press asked her about like Donald Trump saying something about disinfectant or something like that, and then she was just like, we don't need to talk about that. And just shut it down straight away. Like that's the way it should happen, like, and I think that's the way the world's going now, where you just need to, like, if it likes of fucking Donald Trump and different things like that, if everyone just stops fucking talking about it, like, we don't want to know about it, like, different country, let them do them. And
look at New Zealand. We've come into level 2, which means that most businesses are back in operation and people are able to visit family again and visit people that they know. Obviously still don't go hugging strangers, but
a hugely fortunate place to be in.
Absolutely. And it's been all up 7 weeks to go from full lockdown to having businesses back functional, and during that time the government stepped up, paid out subsidies, and have had a huge budget to keep the company and the economy kind of going, and so that people don't lose jobs and that businesses don't close. And it's been huge, and we have had no new cases today, and hopefully that continues.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I think she's done a fantastic job, and it's like you can't sort of knock it either, because it's like literally we've had 20 deaths. Like the rest of the world is talking about thousands of people dying.
Yeah.
And you can turn around. Oh yeah, but the economy is going to be ruined. Rah, rah. It's just like, if everyone's dead, we don't have an economy anyway.
Yeah.
So
Or even just like like you say, either dead or just like the economy shut down. If the economy shut down for 6 months, it's gonna be fucked anyway. You know what I mean? But like, at least New Zealand can look at what it's after taking from just whatever the 7 weeks that it was in lockdown, and like 7 weeks is nothing.
Yeah.
You know, Ireland's is still on lockdown. You know, the construction industry is only potentially coming back next week, and it might not work. You know, 2 weeks on, they might say, "No, we have to retract that. We have to start again." You know, and yeah, I think kudos to Jacinda Ardern and all the fucking New Zealand government. I think they're after killing it. Literally,
Yeah.
which is great.
And she's just so personable as well. You know, like,
you could believe her, like,
for sure.
Like, she goes on Facebook Live after making a fucking like a press conference and just like literally like answers people's questions online. Literally just ordinary Joe Soaps from like Invercargill, fucking Christchurch, all these places, and you're just like, well, that's how to fucking do it. You know what I mean?
Even down to, you know, like when people are asking questions on the thread, she actually addresses them by name, and you know, like she's like, you know, thank you, blah blah blah, for asking that question and responds.
You feel like
to
a politician has your back, like
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 she
is in there for the interest of like, okay, she's in the interest of me being like safe and you know, safe and sound,
and it's personable, because I mean, like, she did one the other night, and you know, she was in her trackies and had just put her son to put her baby to bed, and you know, was just having a chat to the nation. It was pretty cool. She was like apologising for her dress, but she's like, you know, you try and put a 2-year-old to bed and in nice clothes. So
I worry about
nice.
who's going to come after her, because personally I don't think she'll want to go any longer, because she has had to deal with so much stuff, and like, she's just awesome. So trying to fill her shoes with someone who's as personable and, you know, awesome.
But that's politics, man.
Yeah,
it's tough.
Sure.
It is tough, because like when somebody's so good, like inevitably all good things come to an end.
Yeah,
and like it's not like it is a tough one. That is a bit of a crux, like, and I think we even see it at home, like with our Prime Minister Leo Varadkar. Like, even though we all wanted to talk shit about him before everything went down, like when everything did go down, like he actually managed it like very well, you know, considering all stuff, like, and they were behind him where they could have been. Like, there were a few weeks, I suppose, delayed in the response and everything like that, but that's just because like it was a shit show and the timing thing. Like, they could only see what was going on in Italy, and then all of a sudden we were just like, okay, we have to fucking shut down, let's do it, like, straight away. And then the likes of England didn't, and look at the position they're in now. But anyway, solid crack.
I'm very proud to be a Kiwi through all this.
Oh, for sure. And we still, you know, sun's out, magic day here, surfing the Savo. And
the world hasn't ended.
Possibly the best autumn to date.
Oh, sure.
Okay, last week and a half has just been mean weather, and it's going to look like for the rest of the week it's going to be beautiful as well.
Eating good food.
Well, you're going back to the summer. So.
Yeah, go back to the Emerald Isle now when she's fully greened up, ready for me. I think that's a great place to end it, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for having the conversation.
No worries.
Mean.